Welcome, episode number 11. I am so excited for this one. I have kind of changed around my little podcast nook. I've created this little nook on the floor because I have always had this feeling of that I'm so much more creative and in tune when I'm on the floor. So I feel like it's a real super grounding feeling. So if you're playing along on YouTube, I've set up my little new podcast nook here, and it feels so much better. And that leads us into the topic of this episode of making moves that is in alignment to our truth and what that actually looks like and how we actually do that. For so many years of my life, I was an absolute gem at suppressing my feelings and suppressing how I was feeling. And I was really scared to feel because deep down, I had this knowing that if I felt, I would have to take responsibility and I would have to take action inside of my life that would cause a lot of, not conflict isn't the right word, but would cause a lot of like having to really step into speaking up and having to set boundaries and having to really step into my power in the sense of looking what was playing out inside of my life. And that would involve having a lot of hard conversations and a lot of changes inside of my life, the way that I was living it. So I was so good at being so busy all the time. Like I was on the go, 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 go all the time. I was living very much in a burnt out state and I was constantly numbing. So when I had some free time, I would either be like watching series on Netflix or I would be doing something. It was very rare for me to actually just sit in stillness and just be, or like, constantly scrolling on my phone and just not actually allowing myself to just be and just be present. And yeah. So, and I remember actually as well with meditation, my brother, he's like a massive, amazing meditator, like incredible. And we would always have these chats. He's like, Nicole, meditation might be really good for you. Like you're pretty stressed out, man. Like you'll probably benefit from just doing like 5 to 10 minutes a day. I'm like, you're right. And I'm like a health professional. So I know the benefits of meditation and I know how incredible it is for us as humans and how important it is to stop. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good idea. I should do that. And then I would do like, okay, let's just like commit to like once, twice, like 3 times per week and just commit to that. And I was like, yes, sweet, I can do that easy. Like who doesn't have 5 to 10 minutes a day? And then I would start and I would do it for maybe like once or twice, and then I would just not do it again. And reflecting back, I can now understand why, because my programming was that it was so scary and unknown to feel. And I knew that it was an unsafe, in quotation mark, unsafe space for me to go based on my subconscious programming, because that I wasn't brought up with like that feelings were okay and feelings being validated and like, it was okay to speak how you feel and all these things. So for me to go there, it was an unsafe space. It was a program that was running back inside of my mind. And I also knew that if I did intuitively, then I would have to take a lot of action. So I would just keep self-sabotaging. I would just be like falling off the wagon. I would do it a little bit. I'd be like, oh, this feels really good. But then I wouldn't really get into it and I would just keep self-sabotaging. And that goes to show how when we do self-sabotage in these type of areas, but whatever it is that we're committing to, it is always a reason to why we self-sabotage and why we allow certain patterns to play out, because it is based on a programming that is running in our subconscious mind that we sometimes are not even aware of. So if we're not even aware of it, then it's super hard to kind of understand why we keep doing it. But then when we start to unpack that story, we can kind of see of like, oh, okay, that's why I do that. So this leads me on to the pockets for me and how that really led into making moves that was in alignment to my truth and how this literally has truly changed my life. So when I started to create the pockets for you, which I call them, which is like a pocket in the morning that I create for myself every single day without fail. Because one morning I woke up and I was so fucking shit of my own shit. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to start somewhere. And I started with creating these pockets for me where I just it started off with just sitting on the couch with like a cup of coffee and just being present and being in silence. And I was like, okay, that's just what I'm going to do for me. And that then built up with like just wanting to start a journal, and then it built up to creating these pockets for me. And these pockets for me, they weren't, or they still aren't, they're not a meditation, they're not breath work. It's literally just a space for me to sit in, and it's just a safe space for me just to feel into my body, of just allowing myself every day to go there and really practicing my body and being like, it's okay, it's a safe space, we're okay to feel. And over time, the more that I did this, the more things started to drop into me, like whatever we want to call it, intuition, inner wisdom, higher source, higher energy, universe, drop-ins, whatever we want to label it as. But we have this intuition inside of us. We have this essence, we have our truth that is inside of us that will always guide us towards our true north, towards our truth and what it is that is alignment with our truth. And when we start to listen to this, it's just incredible of what we can actually do with our life. Because when we start to quiet the noise of what everyone else is doing around us, for example, going to a friend asking for advice of what you should be doing, rather than actually being like, hang on a second, what is it that I actually want to do? How can I actually sit with this and actually trust myself? And how can I actually lead myself through this and really feel into what it is that I truly want? Do I want to say yes to the situation? Is it a hell yes, or is it a no? And how can I coach myself or mentor myself through this moment, and just actually allowing myself to trust myself in what is coming through and what it is that feels right to me? And this takes time and practice over time when we have been numbing like for so long, of constantly being busy, being on the go, emotionally eating, constantly scrolling, constantly watching Netflix, and being busy, not allowing that stillness and silence to just be. And that's why it's so important to have like a quiet space as well, of just having stillness and silence, because that's when we are in the present moment and we can actually allow the feelings to occur, because they will never come through when we're on the go, we're constantly doing things. A lot of people get drops in, like when they go for a walk and when they go for runs and things like that. And that's obviously very to ourselves, like, you know, that might not happen to, like, if I go for a run, all I'm thinking about how much I'm dying. So like, it's not going to be for everyone, but it's really finding what it is that works for us, that allows us to just be in the present moment and really feeling and really tuning into what it is that feels right to us. And when we start to really trust ourselves, and when we start to actually allow these drop-ins that comes through and the intuition to come through, and when we start to make moves that are in alignment with that, that's what I believe is just like a true life-changing movement that we all have access to, that we all have access to. And it's right there inside of us. And all that it takes is practice of just trusting ourselves to make movements that are in alignment with that. This is how this podcast got created. This is how my business got created. This is how we just bought a beachfront property. And that was just like insane flow. Like, I don't even have words for of how that was just planned out for us, because we just listened into it. Like, this is something that we really want, and this is something that feels really right. Okay, let's explore the option. Okay, let's go and have a look. And then it was just like a ripple effect from there. And it's just like, whoa, there was just like no resistance to that whatsoever. And an important thing with this as well is that when we start to make moves that are in alignment with our truth, that does not mean that it's not going to be any fear, or that it's not going to be any like resistance as such towards it from within us. Like, when I start to make this podcast, it is like sweaty palms, beating heart rate. Fuck, what am I doing? And, I have to like really guide myself through it, because the ego is having a field day with doing things like that, because it's always constantly trying to draw me back to safety. So by me putting myself out there, one of my programming is like, don't be too much, or maybe you're going to be saying the wrong thing. Maybe you will hurt some people. Maybe like, don't speak your point of view. Don't speak your truth. Like, are you sure? So like, all these things that has been programmed inside of me, I am challenging that hardcore with what I'm doing inside of the space, but it feels inside of my body. It's just like, it's a purpose. It's still in alignment. It's still truth that I'm following. But that doesn't mean that I have to face all these limiting beliefs and all these fears, because the fear is always attached to our programming and to our ego and to the limiting beliefs. So when we start to make moves that are in alignment, it's really important to really understand it's not going to be like, oh, gracious, this is fine, it's going to be super easy and it's just going to flow and everything's going to be like, it will be in some circumstances, but it's also having to really meet that edge of actually really having to take action with our truth. And inside of that, it means that we're still leaning into things, even though we're shit scared from it. It's like taking leaps and exploring different options of like, fuck, this feels really right. This is really what I need to do right now, but I am so nervous and I am so scared and I'm so this and that. And it's like, okay, but I can feel the power inside of me is way stronger than the actual fear at stake, that I this is something that I just need to do. And when we start to really listen to that and do it, feel the fear, what's it saying? Yeah, feel the fear and do it anyway. Like when we really start to dance with our fear and really stepping into our truth and knowing so hardcore of what it feels like to be in alignment, it is such a powerful place to play in. So it's to start this journey, if you're currently kind of like not knowing where to start, or like kind of like, how do I start to feel? It's really just about committing to a ritual that you do every single day, of actually having a quiet time and stillness and something that just allows you to tune in. And then just starting to really trust yourself, or when you have a feeling inside of you that comes up, like it's like a knowing, it's like a deep heart type feeling. When you start to have those drop-ins, it might be like a small thing of like, it could be like, what do you want for dinner? And then you know exactly what it is that you want, but you might go and be like, oh no, I'm not really sure. So it's like just trusting those small things that keeps dropping in to start off with, and just being super curious and following it and just seeing how that feels. Or it might be like speaking your truth, of being like, you're being asked a question about something and maybe you're not, one to actually speak your opinion, of like, okay, I've actually got something I want to say here. And then starting to just speak with that truth, starting, okay, this is something that I really want to voice. And then you start to follow that and just see how that feels. So it's not, like making the big moves inside of life, of like doing the business or, buying the house or following like a massive, like big dream. Like those are the bigger things that we can feel in alignment with. But just to start off with, it's super powerful just to do the smaller things in everyday life to really start to trust that process. And it's such a powerful place to be in, and really just remembering that the fear is always going to be there, and it's just trusting yourself so hardcore and really leading yourself. You will have a different life, because you will actually stop to follow what is the pathway that has been made for you already. And also a really important thing inside of this is also loving really hard on your past, loving really hard on your history, accepting it, that it is what it is, what happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way. Peter Crone quote. He says that. And this is beautiful summary of it, because it's no point of living in our past, because it is literally what's happened. And we can sit in our past for as long as we want, but it's not going to allow us to move forward. Every single minute of the day, every single hour, every single week, every single month, every single year, we have an opportunity of a clean slate right in front of us. And it's how we allow ourselves to really lean into the opportunities and the possibilities that are in front of us, because we have endless opportunities and possibilities. It is our brain that is constantly projecting our history forward, or being like, what if that? What if that might be too much? Maybe you will die if you do that. Like whatever the thing is, right? It will always project our history and the safety of our programming forward. But it is so far from the truth, because we have endless possibilities and opportunities ahead of us if we just allow ourselves to follow it, if we just allow ourselves to tap into our truth and make moves that are in alignment to that. And once we really start to see the wisdom and the experience that we have already experience inside of our life, what we can actually take from that as well, or being like, cool, this is what I learned from that, and that's the opportunity, and that's the pattern, and that's the wound that I healed from moving through all this stuff, and now I'm this person, and that life is happening for us, not to us, and really stepping into that energy. And a really cool one as well is how we can, instead of searching for options of like going to search for, oh, by then I'll be happy, or going for search for certain outcomes, it's just being super happy and content with where we're currently at right now. And then when we trust ourselves and when we feel the drop-ins and when we feel our heart pulling towards something, it's like we're making moves that are in alignment with that, but we're just exploring the option. So, okay, I feel something, I'm feeling drawn to that. My heart's like, oh my God, that's something that I got to do. So I'm going to then take the first step of exploring that option. I'm going to see how that feels, and I'm going to follow that and see what actually comes out of that. And fuck, it's just such a powerful, powerful space to be in. So I really invite you guys this week to really tap into that, tap into just listening, just get super curious again of like just observing your body, observing how you're feeling, observing what's coming up. If you're inside of a conversation at work, if you're inside a conversation with your family, if you're talking about something with whoever, like what are you actually feeling inside of that? Or if you're really just sitting with yourself, what is something that has been a hell yes that you really, really, really want to do, that you know that your heart is pulling you towards, but you keep putting off? What is that? And what if you just started taking that first step of just exploring the option? What if you just lent into it a little bit more and just being like, oh, I'm just going to suss this out and see. And then just seeing what unfolds from that. It is a super, super powerful place to play in. And I hope that that gives you empowerment for this week moving forward, of really understanding of how much power you hold inside of you, and that all the power that you need is within you. No one can tell you what to do. No one knows what to do other than you. You know what it is that's right for you. And it's about really stepping in to your truth and really trusting yourself of what feels right to you, and trusting yourself in what it is that you were made to do in this life, and trusting yourself to stop playing small and really putting one foot in front of the other and moving towards that calling that is inside of you. So I'm going to leave you and love you with that for this week. And I hope that you have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next week for another episode.